So here we are, Throttle-On John. We're going to do a brake job today on a 2002 Toyota RAV4. This would be the same for the same year. There's a span of years that works on for a Toyota Camry. And you can see this side, rotors are pretty worn. The brakes are actually working okay. So we're going to go ahead and replace rotors, the rotor and the brake pads and shims and shim kit and everything. On this, I was going to start filming the other side, which has been renewed. And you can see it has a new rotor on there and pads, and it went great. But we learned some things, so I wanted to do this one first, and then you know, do the educational component on the second side. So we'll tell you what we learned. So let's get started. So Elliot's helping me today. He's done a good job. He helped me yesterday too. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove these two caliper bolts. We have, what were those, 12 millimeters?
14.
14. 14 here and a 14 here, and that'll help us remove this caliper to expose the brake pads. And then we've got a couple 17 millimeters here and then down here, and that will help us remove this bracket. Once this is off, then we can even remove the rotor. Now, an interesting thing about the rotor when we get to that is, I think this is the M8 by 1.25 bolt, which you can, you know, use the manifold bolts, for manifold shield bolts from these cars, most of them, or you could go down to a hardware store, and that'll thread in here, and if this is rusted on, it'll push that off so you don't have to beat on this with a hammer. You could do that lightly, but with Toyotas, you have these threaded areas where you could just thread a bolt into there and it'll push on the hub and it'll push them off for you. So anyway, Elliot, go ahead and remove those.
One more right here.
Yep. And these came out relatively easy. If you're in a rust belt or somewhere, then you might need to, sometimes we have to hold this inner thing here. There's looks like it would be I don't know, maybe a 14 or 12 or something. So there's one, and then he's just going to go ahead and remove the other one. And we're going to keep an eye on this caliper, because once those are out, this caliper can come off. Good. Okay, and then what's nice is I got these little hooks on Amazon, and you could use a bungee. Go ahead and wiggle that and just pull that off. And then let's hook it maybe, yeah, right through there. And so that way we're not putting any tension on our brake hose. You could find a place to maybe tuck this, but you just don't want to stress this hose out. If you do and yank on that, then you're going to be putting a new hose on. So of course now we can see the pads. We have two options. We could take this all the way off, or we could even, you know, these pads will just come right out, and that's the way they're supposed to come out, is nice and easy. Now, the thing to note is the direction of travel here. See this arrow? This arrow is going with the rotation of the wheel. Elliot, if you want to just turn that wheel, so when you're going down the road, maybe from here, just a little bit, you don't turn it much. So that's going to turn that way. That's perfect. As we go down the highway, so this shim kit is showing you which way is going with the rotation of the tire. So I puzzled over that, and in the same way on the shim, there's a shim underneath it. So it's pretty simple. You just want to make note of that. All right, so you could remove this and then take the pads out, or we're going to take the pads out and then remove this. So we're going to remove the other side now. And Elliot, if you want to try wiggling those out, you sure can. Just kind of wiggle on those a little bit, and just like that. Yeah, you can take that shim off. There you go. Just like that. Yep, there you go. And so there he goes. He has the other side out. Pretty easy. Now we'll remove the caliper bracket. Note that when we took the inner pad off, that's where the squeal tab is. That's when the wear indicator. When that gets to the end of its life, which it was getting really, really close, then that tab will start to hit. See how the pad just barely had any more room before that indicator was going to start to hit? And so that on this application, this goes on the inside on the bottom. Actually on the top. I'm sorry. So there's our wear indicator there, and it kind of goes on the top of the inner pad, the pad with that goes against the caliper piston. And we'll go over that when we put it back together. So Elliot's going to go ahead and take these. He's going to take these 17 millimeters off here now. And sometimes a breaker bar can be helpful if those don't want to come off really good. In fact, good job. And then if that's hard, I have a breaker bar on that if that gets too hard to pull on. Let's go ahead and get a breaker bar. Oh man, well he's stronger than me, but you know, a long breaker bar can help, or an impact wrench. So there he is threading those out. And good. And then he's going to thread the other one out. And once you get them run out, you can just run them out by hand. To use gloves on this because these are usually rusty and brake dust. And then this just, you can see that just pulls off. You know, make note of the orientation. You can see the curve of the bracket goes with the curve of the wheel. So that way you can keep the orientation correct. And now we'll just go ahead and clean this bracket up. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take the rotor off. And this came off so easy. And that's all there is to it. And then you have the hub behind there. And so the next step is we're going to clean this up really good with a wire brush and some brake cleaner. Some instances that might be harder to get off and you'll have to thread that that bolt in there, but in this instance it came off easy. So the next step is we're going to clean this up. If you have like a high spot on here, then when you put your new rotors on, it'll act like your rotor's out of true, and it'll have a wobble and you'll have a pulsing pedal. So it makes sense to just take a little time and clean this off with a wire brush. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So here's the that M8 by 1.25 thread bolt that we could thread out of the exhaust manifold shield, and that would help pop that rotor off if you had a tight one. And then we just, of course, replace that. But if you need to rob one, you could do that, or you could go to a hardware store. Okay, so next, Elliot's going to take a wire brush and just kind of clean up around there. We're going to get it nice and smooth. We're going to make sure we get around the bolt holes, or the studs. And then he's also getting around the hub. He's getting all those places. So we're going to go ahead and spend some time doing that. We'll shoot it with some brake cleaner, and then we'll go back at it. So spending a little time on this now will make your life easier later. You can also use like this OEM Tools deal here, where you put it on a drill bit, and you could do that on a drill and really clean those out. But this just doesn't have enough rust to be concerned about that. So we're just going to use a wire brush. So when we push this caliper back in, we'll clean up around that boot and everything. When we push that back in, we'll be doing that soon. You want to come up here, and you can see this one was, this is the brake fluid reservoir. It was down pretty low. When I pushed my other piston in, this moved up quite a bit. And if I push that other piston in, this is definitely going to overflow. So you may not want to always top off your fluid when it's down lower here, because when you do a job like this, it'll overflow. Plus, if you're at a minimum level, your brakes might be getting worn. So something to consider is be careful about topping this off. Keep it within an inspect, but just a thought. So we definitely need to withdraw some of this out. So you could just use a turkey baster, but we're going to go ahead and just pull this out, and then we're just going to, I have like a syringe here. I have a syringe. We're just going to, pull some of that out. You could use a turkey baster as well, and we'll just pull it down enough to where we know it won't overflow. Like maybe down, I'm just going to pull it down like maybe to there or so. You can see we pulled some fluid out of there, so we're good to go on pushing that caliper piston back in. Here is, we're going to clean this piston, this caliper piston. I'm just going to use some contact cleaner on a rag. You could certainly use brake cleaner, and this rubber booty, you know, doesn't like harsh cleaners, so I wouldn't use like a harsh cleaner, spray it all over the booty, but we're just going to wipe around here and catch some of this stuff, so when that goes back in, it's clean. And I'm going to clean this surface here since this is going to go against the outer part of the brake pad. So this surface, you know, right in there. You could take a wire brush to that if you need to. This one in this case is going to clean up just fine just with the contact cleaner. And then we're going to go ahead and we'll take a piston, something to push the piston back in with, and I'll show you what those tools look like next. Our piston and our caliper, and there's a couple different kinds. I got these both on Amazon pretty cheap, and you don't need both, you get one or the other. You have this kind where you ratchet it and it spreads this apart, and this one you just push in there and it'll just push the piston in. We'd put, if we were going to use this one, we'd put a pad on top of the caliper, and then we would just you know, stick this in here, and it's going to screw onto that pad and push that in. So there's that one. But since I have this device and it looks pretty nice, I think Toyota recommends this. I'm going to put this in here, and then you can see we're going to push that in. And it just has kind of a ratcheting device, and that's how that works. So now we're just going to go ahead and use this expandable caliper spreader, and you can see the piston is being driven back up into the caliper as we turn this. And we're just going to turn that until it's bottomed all the way out. And it'll just be a natural kind of stopping point. And I like this because it doesn't damage anything. I think we're almost there. Okay, that's it. And then, okay, you can see this is now flush. We didn't, you know, hurt anything with this nice tool. And you can see, you always want to make sure this rubber caliper boot isn't like pinched up anywhere. If it were, we could feather a tip up, let some of the air out, and massage it back in. But this one looks just fine, so we're good. As you're pushing that caliper in, you can break this bleeder valve and bleed a little fluid out to get rid of the old fluid. That is a good thing to do, but I'm going to bleed this system before I'm done with this, flush it, so I'm not that concerned today about it, but that's a good step to do as you're pushing in your piston. You could crack this and let some of that old fluid out, so just a little tip. And then you can see our rotor's looking nice and clean, so we're going to go ahead and put our rotor on. You can put grease or never sees on here, just a thin coat, you know, so if those rotors will come off easier the next time that you're doing them. And you don't want to put just a thin coat. You don't want this spinning off and getting on the rotor, just a skim. And this is kind of an optional step. So these are Toyota rotors, factory rotors, OEM rotors. You can tell because they're painted here. If they're not painted, then generally they're aftermarket. That keeps things from rusting so much. And when these come, sometimes they'll have a little bit of just covering so that these don't rust on them. So you want to take that off with just a quick squirt of brake clean. And then I'll flip this over. I'll get the other surface too. And you could put the skim of grease in here or on the hub. I'm not so sure I won't put it on the inside of this rotor here, not on the braking surface, of course. And look at all that stuff we're getting off just from this sitting around. That you don't want that on your brake system. So look at all the stuff that came off those rotors. You don't want that on your braking surface. And you could put this on the hub, and we're just going to put a skim. We'll just get some on there, and then I'll even probably tack a little off. So just a skim of grease on there. This is an optional step. You don't have to do this, but just a skim of grease so that doesn't want to, you know, get so stuck on there it doesn't hurt. And with just a little bit on there, it's not going to, you know, change the tolerances. We're not going to put so much to where there's going to be a bubble or something when that goes on. Nice job. Just for the sake of clarity, we could have also put the grease on here as well. Okay, just a little tip, we're going to put this rotor on, and to hold the rotor on, since this is a Toyota, I'm just going to use one of the lug nuts till I get the caliper back on. So we can just screw this on, and this will hold this on so it doesn't fall off. There we go. Just on a footnote, I'm really glad we took the time to pull the fluid out of there with a turkey baster. We would have overflowed that everywhere. So anyway, that's an important step. Just a little footnote on these clips. This comes with a fit kit, which I have here. I just got a little anti-squeal shim kit. And then it also comes, you can get these little clips called a fit kit. And I'm going to replace them, but these, actually they're dirty, but they're fine. You can reuse those if they're Toyota ones. I'd encourage you to use Toyota brake pads and Toyota shims. They just just seem to be a little better quality overall. So we're going to take these clips out. Now, make sure you take note. These clips are not the same top and bottom. And plus, you can flip these clips around. One of the reasons I didn't film the other side is I got these clips turned around and had this side over here, because you know they kind of can be mirror images if you use this clips from the other side. And I fought getting the pads in, so it wouldn't hurt to take a few pictures, I guess is where I'm going with all this. Take a few pictures, and then if you're in doubt, you can look at your pictures when you put it back together. So we're going to take this outside, take a wire brush to it, and I'm removing these clips now, and we're going to clean this all up and then reassemble it. Just a footnote is these bigger clips, wider clips go at the top of this caliper, and these shorter clips go at the bottom. So that's just something to be aware of. Okay, so Elliot's going to go ahead and take where these brake, rest of these clips go. The shims, we're going to clean this. These actually look really good. And he's going to clean that, hit with some of that, hit it with a wire brush. And mechanical abrasion is your friend. And so he's going to take a wire brush now and just kind of get in there and scrub that really good. That's perfect, Elliot. Nice job. So he's going to get that nice and clean. We're doing this outside because the brake cleaners are rather strong, and we don't want to, get goofy in there sniffing brake cleaner. I'm goofy enough without brake cleaner. And so we're coming out here where there's some fresh air. So do this in a well-ventilated area, or we picked outside. We're in Oregon. It's raining today out here, so, do it, but it's still worth it. And then we'll give that another spritz of some brake cleaner. I'll give it a little spritz. It's on here. Boom. And then he's going to hit that a little more. And those surfaces look really nice. In a moment, we'll put some grease on there on the bottom side of the clip where it's going to rest on the top. There's some silicone Sil Glide. And yeah, go ahead and hit that again. There you go. Looking good. And we'll get that nice and clean. If this didn't come clean, you could use a mild file on there or sandpaper, but this is coming clean just fine. So here are these pins, and these are going to come out, and you can see it just comes out just like so. It just has a little lip. And one has a little bit of rubber plastic there, and the other one does not. So when you do that, you have to make sure you put them back in the right places. So I'm going to use a little bit of contact cleaner on a rag, and we're just going to get these nice and clean. And you can even pull the boot off if you want to, and clean this. And then we can run this in a few times to spread the lubricant inside the pin. And just, take some time, clean the pin off. Okay. And then we're going to take a little bit of this brake lubricant, Sil Glide, silicone lubricant. And we're just going to, you don't want to, less is more in this application. If you put too much on there, it'll kind of get stiction and vacuum and won't work very well. So I'm putting this in without the boot first so I can spread it in without getting scraped off by the boot. I'm just going to run that up and in there a few times. That feels good. You don't want too much on the tip. I made sure the tip of this was wiped off, because if you get it in here, this is a closed blind hole, it will want to push out. But you can see I can get this all the way in, and it doesn't want to push out. Okay, so now we can put our boot back on. And just something like that. Get that back up over that lip. And then I might give this just a little bit of a skim. Just less is more. And then we're just gonna put that back in there. And then we'll get this one. I can just use my fingers, but if I need to use a little screwdriver to get that up around that lip, I could, but I think I can gonna get that there, and there we go. So if you have it right, it should do this. It should be able to push in and spring out. It's not in a bind, but if you push in and this sticks in, you got a little stiction going of some kind. So now we're putting grease just a little bit on where these clips are gonna go. Just good job, Ellie. Just to skim on those surfaces in there. And that way, when we put these clips in, they'll just have a nice surface where these won't rust. This is making your job easier the next time you do a brake job. But it probably takes up a little tolerance, but we're mainly just keeping the surfaces where those clips go nice and tidy. And we're going to do the same thing to this upper surface. We're going to flip this over, and this other surface is going to get the same treatment. And see how clean and flat these surfaces are? If they're not, you could always take a mild sandpaper or a light file, but these were in perfect condition, so a wire brush was perfect. I just got that wire brush off Amazon. Came in a pack of 3. Very good. Now we're ready for our clips. So I've got the upper clips here that'll go on top. I laid them out before we ran this, and then you have the lower clips. Now, these lower clips go in with this tab facing, these tabs out here, and this facing forward. The other day I tried installing this other one like this, and your pads will be tight, tight, tight when you do that, so it won't work. So this is for the other side here, and this is for this side here. And it makes sense, they go out so you can get the pads in and lined up. And then these other clips, so what these top ones go like this. And if you look at the mating surfaces, you can kind of tell, you can see how this, is wider than this, so this really needs to go like so. But if you don't get these clips right, it won't work. Just trust me. I tried on my other one for quite a while, and it wasn't a lot of fun trying to get the brake pads in when I had them in wrong. So just trust me, take your time, get these in. And now we're just going to put, I'm going to wipe this off. Looks like it got contaminated a little bit there. We're going to put some silicone grease, a light skim here, and here, like we did the other surface, and we'll be ready to go. I'm going to put a light skim of grease in here, and there, and likewise in here, just a light skim. You don't want to attract dirt, so this is where less is more again. This is hard for me because I like grease and stuff, so I just got to tell myself not too much. And that's basically all that's going to get. So this is worth talking about. This is why I got I was having trouble on my other one. This comes with your brake pads. I didn't look at the instructions because the brake pads appeared to be mirror images of each other, but they're different. Install the inner pad A and the outer pad B on the right-hand caliper. So these are marked. See that little B there? And this one I put the shim kit in on it, half of it, and there's an A here. So basically, you've got to get that right with the instructions. You have to, or they will not fit. If you have to hammer these in, I was trying to tap one in. You've got either your shims in wrong, or you've got your pad A and B mixed around. So now we're going to use our Moly coat here, or actually it's Toyota. I don't know what it is, but it's the paste that came with the shim kit. You're going to put this, I already did this one, on the back of this. This helps absorb sound from the brakes hitting the metal rotors so that you don't get brake squeal. So this is going to go on here, and you just squeeze a little bit out. And you get a little bit out of there. And then you're just going to rub that around this back surface. And then we're going to put this clip on. And these arrows show the direction. Okay. And then this is the anti-squeal, not the anti-squeal, the wear indicator. And so that pops on in a little groove on that pad. See how it goes in that tang? And this goes away from the braking surface. And this goes on the caliper pad at the top, the pad that's going against the piston. So go ahead, let's coat this now with some of this stuff provided by Toyota. Okay, so here we are putting some of that on there. And they don't give you as much as I would have liked. I know it doesn't take a lot, but I feel like we just had barely enough to get this project done. So maybe that's on purpose. Maybe they don't want you gooping too much on, but we're just going to spread it around all the back surface, and then we'll put the shim on. And this is for the Toyota brake kit. I would advise using Toyota brake pads. I know there's other pads that would work just fine. Yep, and you just get a full coating like that. And then we'll put one of the shims on. Okay, Elliot, go ahead and put the shim on. Yep. And notice the arrow is going to go, if we were to mount that on the caliper, yep, and it should just click on, easy, no force needed. And then we're going to put just a little bit more of that stuff on here, just a light skim. And, I think we could use silicone grease in between this component, but we're just going to put a light skim of this stuff on there. And I noticed some Toyota pads have 2 sets of shims like this one, and some have 1, so it's probably model specific. And then we'll put the next one on, and see the arrow is going to go the same way as the other arrow. And notice how you got the right ones when it's notched out for the wear indicator. See how that shim's notched out for that, and both arrows are going the same way. Now we're ready to put, we'll put this one on, and we'll put it in the caliper. Okay, so now this is just going to load in here. You can see the radius of the wheels like this. So these have the curvature of the pads in the same way. And these are just going to kind of drop in. And we line this up here, and then kind of, yep, see how that dropped in really, really quite easy? See how they just drop in? And that's how you know you got them the right way. And if you have to put them in, you're having trouble, you're struggling, then something's going on. See how they slide in? See how that slides back and forth super easy just with my fingers? That's when you know you got it right. So we drop that in, our arrow's right with the tire rotation, and then this inner one is going to go in, and we have make sure you're not getting brake. We've changed out our gloves a bunch of times. We don't want to get stuff on our pads here. Grease on our pads. And so now we're going to go ahead and drop this other one in. And you could do this on the car too. We could argue that might make sense, but there's no right way or wrong way on this. Just do it what works best for you. Okay, and then we'll just get this other one in. You just line it up, and then that just kind of goes right in there. Sometimes you have to push down on this tab down here. And then once again, this is going in just with my fingers fairly easily. And you just kind of load those in just like that. And see, this slides back and forth super, super easy, so we know we did it right. I'm going to put this on the caliper next, so I'm just going to squirt a little bit of brake cleaner on these pads. And I just don't want there being anything on there. And that's contact cleaner. And that way these brake pads are nice and clean.
Put this on.
So Elliot's sliding that on. Very good. Okay, now we're just going to put these bigger bolts back in. You could put some people recommend putting never sees or even blue Loctite on there. And he's putting on the other one. Very good. This looks great. And we're going to wait to torque those all the way down to the end, but we're just going to lightly kind of put those in right now. Nice job. You can see we've got these. The arrows are going the right way with the rotation. Just getting these. We'll torque these later, and we do want to torque these to spec. We're getting ready to mount the caliper. We've pushed the piston back in, back on our pads, and we're going to put silicone Sil-Glide. This is specific for, you know, brake calipers. We're going to put it around this, where this piston contacts the shim, and also on these surfaces over here, where this contacts out here. You could also put this grease on this area, but I think it's going to be easier just to, you know, put some around there. Okay, and then we're also going to put some on these surfaces here, just to give you a little better angle there. I'm going to put it on these surfaces in here. Anything that's going to contact that shim. And we'll get this lower one. Some have 3 little tabs here, some have 2. A smaller vehicle like a Camry or RAV4 will probably have 2 just like this. And then I'm going to just revisit this one more time. Okay, and then you could, if you're in doubt, you could always put some on here if you don't know where it's going to make contact. That's not a wrong thing. You know, we could get this other side too. And then it's just a matter of taking this and we're just going to catch this pads, and we're going to slide that in, and then we're going to replace our bolts. So here we are replacing our bolts into would be the pins. If they turn, we can always grab this with something here. Yep, just kind of hold on to it. And like I said, we will torque those down. Now we're going to get the lower one. And if your manual calls for blue Loctite, you can put that on there. And there you go. Now we're going to go ahead and torque those down. And remember, we already cleaned this with brake cleaner, the rotor. I might wipe some of this, you know, Sil-Glide out of there since that's not contacting anything. And let's torque. I'm not a torqueaholic on torquing stuff, but I do torque stuff with brakes. So we're going to snug those up by hand, and then we're going to go back and torque it. So yeah, we'll go back and forth a few times. So for this application, be sure to consult a manual or you know, find the right torque specs for your application. But for this 2002 RAV4, it looks like for the Toyota service manual, the pins, the caliper pins bolts are 20 foot-pounds on those 14 millimeters, and it looks like for the bracket that holds the brake pads, it basically it's 80 foot-pounds or 78 foot-pounds. So we're going to go ahead and torque the pins first at 20 foot-pounds. Here are these 14 millimeter pin bolts. We're going to go 20 foot-pounds. There's that one. There's that one. I'm going to go back and forth a few times. That one feels good. And like I said, I don't really torque stuff, but you just don't want to get it too tight. So that is done there. Okay, Elliot's torquing the larger 14 millimeters to 78 foot-pounds. There it is. And he's going to go to the upper one. Sometimes that upper one's a little harder to get at. There he goes, he's getting it. Good, yep, give it a little more. And good. Good, and then we're going to check it one more time. We're going to go back to each one just to make sure that they're torqued down. Good. And then he's going to check that upper one. Perfect. Nice job. Now it's just a matter of putting the wheel on, putting the wheel down, lug nuts down to spec and in a star pattern so we don't bend the rotors. That's just something I should talk about is when you put the wheel on, of course, you know, put them on down little by little by little in a star pattern, and then do that to torque spec, because you can bend a rotor if you just put this one down all the way, and then this one you can actually bend a beautiful brand new set of rotors. I've had tire shops do that before, and it's tough, you know. You don't want to go in and say, hey, you bent my rotors. I usually just end up getting it home and fixing it with a new set of rotors. But that being said, just make sure you torque your wheels to spec, and, you know, pump your brakes up. We may bleed these just to get fresh fluid in there, but thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you. We've had fun making the video, and it's always fun to do something yourself. You can feel good about it, and you know that it's done right, and you learn something along the way. So hope this was useful, and good luck working on your own vehicle.